Hi guys, today we're talking about the horrible murder of Shanda Sharer. In the early morning hours of January 11th, 1992, 12-year-old Shanda was abducted from her home in Madison, Indiana, and tortured to death by 4 teenage girls. Melinda Lovelace, Mary Tackett, who went by Lori, Hope Rippey, and Toni Lawrence. All 4 girls had somewhat of a rocky home life growing up, with allegations of molestation and physical abuse from family members. In junior high, Melinda began dating a girl named Amanda Heverin. However, their relationship was very toxic and they ended up breaking up. Fast forward to October of 1991, and this is when Amanda meets Shanda. Their friendship soon grows into a romantic relationship, which angers Melinda, who then begins to discuss killing Shanda with Lori, Hope, and Toni. So Melinda put together a plan to have her 3 friends knock on Shanda's door a little after midnight on January 11th while she hid in the back of Lori's car under a blanket with a knife. The girls would tell Shanda, whom they had never actually met, that they were friends with Amanda and wanted to hang out. But when Shanda got into the car, Melinda jumped out from the back seat and held the knife to her throat. They drove Shanda deep into the forest to an abandoned house where they stripped her naked, tied her up, and brutally beat her for 7 hours. Melinda then tried to slash her throat, but the knife was too dull, so she strangled her with a rope until she was unconscious. All 4 girls threw Shanda into the trunk and went back to Lori's house to clean up and drink soda. At some point, Shanda awoke and started screaming, so Lori proceeded to stab her in the chest multiple times. The girls then got back into the car and drove around for a couple of hours. During the drive, Shanda, who was still alive, started crying, and when Melinda opened the trunk, she sat up, covered in blood, with her eyes rolled back in her head. Melinda then beat Shanda with a tire iron until she went unconscious. They continued driving until they reached a burn pile. They then wrapped Shanda in a blanket, sprayed her with Windex, doused her in gasoline, and set her on fire. But despite all of this, Shanda managed to survive, that is until the girls came back, saw she was still alive, and set her on fire again. They then left to go eat breakfast while Shanda burned to death. Melinda joked about Shanda's burned body resembling a breakfast sausage she was eating and bragged to many people about the murder. But the next day, when Shanda's body was found by 2 hunters, Toni and Hope broke down and confessed to the police. All 4 girls were charged with Shanda's murder. Toni was sentenced to 20 years, Hope was sentenced to 35 years, and Lori and Melinda were sentenced to 60 years in prison. But despite the horrible nature of the murder and their lack of remorse, since 2019, all 4 girls have since been released from prison and are now walking free.
This is Sierra Halseth, 16, and Aaron Guerrero, 18, and they were recently charged with murdering Sierra's father.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Wow! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
That video was released this week, and it was submitted to the grand jury during their indictment as evidence that they admitted to killing someone. Like so many of these cases, the reasons why they killed Sierra's father, Daniel, was because Daniel had forbidden them from seeing each other, and I guess now we know why. Also submitted to the grand jury was CCTV footage of them at a home goods store buying a circular saw, bleach, gloves, and lighter fluid. It appears the couple was going to try and dismember Daniel after they stabbed him to death. But real life isn't like the movies, and so they abandoned that, stuffed him in a sleeping bag, and then lit the house on fire. And then the pair, showing masterful criminal technique, took off with no money and no plan other than the fact that they were trying to make it to LA. They left all manner of criminal breadcrumbs trying to pull money from different ATMs as they traveled out of the state, eventually getting Daniel's card shut off because they didn't have the PIN. Eventually, the two got stopped by police when they were trying to hop on a train in Salt Lake City. The police opened their trunk and found a bloody blanket and decided to detain them. According to the indictment, they were also charged with conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree arson, fraudulent use of credit or debit card, robbery with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery on top of first-degree murder. The first preliminary hearing was scheduled for June 9th, literally a couple days ago. Since Sierra is 16, it appears that they cannot push for the death penalty if this goes to a full trial, but if Aaron Guerrero does not essentially plead guilty, they are going to push for the death penalty for him. I honestly don't think this will get to a trial, but we'll see. I already read one article about a therapist saying that they were too young to understand what they were really doing.
This is an extremely disturbing case. So in August 2005, Shanda Arnold of Ohio was having an argument over Paris's paternity with the dad. After they fought, she stuck her 28-day-old baby inside of this microwave for over 2 minutes with it running. She ended up dying when her temperature reached 108. The next day, the parents took her to the hospital, and Shanda tried to say that she was intoxicated so she doesn't know how the child died, but that was bullshit. While she was in jail awaiting trial, she ended up having a romantic relationship with her cellmate, and she confessed to her how guilty she felt over the murder. So that lady ended up testifying against her, which caused Shanda to get life in prison. It's honestly so messed up. Shanda tried to get her other son to lie and say that the neighbor killed her baby, but that was proved to be BS, and now she'll rot in prison.
It's just a cigarette.